Alrighty, so welcome to the first ever Technical Assistance Coffee Chat hosted by the New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative, or the NJCRC for short, another acronym for you there. My name is Vanessa Tropiano, and I'm the Coastal Training Program Coordinator at the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve in Southern Ocean County. I'm a partner of the NJCRC, and I'm helping the CRC to pilot this coffee chat program to begin better connecting our network with local stakeholders and to better help support coastal communities' resilience needs. Today, we have with us a great mix of local stakeholders, municipalities, other NJCRC partners, and other organizations and agencies who play a role in coastal resilience across New Jersey. And because we're a large group, by way of introduction, I'm going to ask everybody to please just put your name, affiliation, and title in the chat. So today's objectives, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the NJCRC, or the invitation to this meeting was the first time you've heard about it, in just a few minutes, we're going to talk more about, just briefly, about how we formed and what we do. Then we're going to hear from the NJDEP about their new local planning for climate change toolkit, which is designed to help support communities with various general resilience planning, and also with new state initiatives that are encouraging resilience planning at the local level. We're then going to move into smaller groups and breakout rooms to actually have a more in-depth discussion about communities' priority resilience needs and your concerns. And we'll begin to facilitate those networking connections that are really the ultimate goal of this coffee chat program, by connecting your needs with NJCRC partners who can offer help in those areas. And then after the meeting, we'll follow up to continue the conversation and get your feedback on how to make these future coffee chats as useful to you as possible. We're going to try out in the future also an in-person format for those who prefer that. But first, to guide today's discussions, we're going to do a quick Mentimeter activity. So if you look at the website on the top of the screen, www.menti.com, you can go to that website, put in this code, and you'll be able to put a blue dot on the map where you're located. So I'll give you a second to get to the website. I'll also put a direct link in the chat. That way you can go directly to it that way. And I see some people are figuring it out, so that's good. So just move the blue dot to where you are and then hit submit, and it'll populate on my shared screen. Already seeing some really great distribution across the state, which is wonderful. The fact that we're spread out across New Jersey really speaks to the fact that we have a very diverse coastal zone. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach to resilience, which is both a challenge and an opportunity, I think, for resilience in the state. And it's one of the reasons the NJCRC was formed, to address this diversity and start better networking and information sharing across all these different areas so we can know what we are doing. So I'll give you just another couple seconds to put your blue dot, and then we'll move on to the next question. So our second and last question is asking, what role do you play in coastal resilience? So how are you involved in coastal resilience efforts? And we're not necessarily looking for your title, but more what you actually do. So I have some examples up there on the screens. Maybe you do flood outreach for the CRS program. Maybe you're a modeler. You can go ahead and put a little blurb and hit submit, and it'll come up and we'll be able to see some of the work that we each are doing. And I know a lot of us wear multiple hats, so feel free to submit more than one answer. So this is great. I see vulnerability assessments, flood modeling, policy and planning, restoring habitats, engineering, a really vast range of different activities. And this really speaks to the fact that, resilience is a puzzle with lots of moving parts. And today we're going to start working towards figuring out how we can better work together to complement and support each other's efforts and needs with all of our different roles. So with that, we are going to get started with today's agenda. If at any time during the meeting today you have questions, please just put them in the chat. We do have a tight schedule, so we may not take all the questions, but we'll follow up directly with you after the meeting. I'll go through the chat and make sure we reach out via email to get your questions answered. Once we transition into the breakout rooms, your facilitator will encourage you to come off mute so you can have a more active conversation. But for now, please just stay on mute. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ed Mahaney. He's going to give you an overview of the CRC. He is one of the NJCRC co-chairs, as well as aware of a few other hats, including being the former mayor of Cape May and the treasurer of the Sustainable Jersey Board of Trustees. So Ed, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. And I thank all of you who are joining us today in your varied roles. It's very important that we work in a united fashion to advance the cause of resiliency. It's our future, and it's our followers' future, and especially our kids and our grandkids. The CRC was formulated at the direction and with the support of this, with staffing by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection in 2016. And we gradually grew and had meetings and worked on developing a membership, an activity level, and our influence with state government and with the private sector. And during that 5-year period, our organization's funding for support staff has transitioned from the DEP. And I see Becky Hill on this call, and Becky was a key member in helping us organize this. But we switched over now to a contract between DEP and New Jersey Sea Grant. So that's been very effective for us. And Tom Harrington and Laura Kerr have been very instrumental in keeping the mission of the CRC on track. The CRC has a purpose. It's a network established to foster sustainable and resilient coastal communities and ecosystems by generating informed action. And it took us several months over our second year to come up with that purpose statement so that it would meet not only the needs of what we were trying to accomplish, but also more importantly, it would meet the needs of our partners so that everyone would feel included and have a viable part in the enterprise. Who are we? Well, the partners include, but are not limited, state and private universities, nonprofit groups, and also national estuary programs and reserves, advocacy groups, state agencies, and regional planning groups. So we have a wide diversity. We have our own bylaws now that we've developed and our operational procedures. This is overseen by the CRC Leadership Commission. And that committee is composed of partners focusing on the image and the direction that the collaborative should be going in. Our leadership committee selects the 3 co-chairs, and I'm very fortunate to serve along with Tony McDonald and Tim Dillingham. Tony, as everyone knows, is the director of the Urban Coast Institute at Monmouth University, and Tim Dillingham is the executive director of the American Littoral Society. We stress, and I think this is something that Vanessa is trying to address today, we stress making a priority for working directly with communities to raise awareness, identity, and challenges to support their needs and make their projects become a reality. We need to have beneficial solutions. And how do we do this? We do this by sharing information among our members, by ongoing research, and to get out and do outreach with the towns and their stakeholders so that they have on a local level decision-making to foster action. So one of the things that we have done right from the beginning that's been very helpful, we set up work groups, and it's on a voluntary basis among our members. And the work groups have completed some major assignments. We have a municipal practices work group, a state practices work group, a very active ecological restoration and science work group, and we had a Read for Resilience work group. And what have they accomplished in a nutshell? Actually, we provided input into the development of the draft New Jersey Climate Change Resilience Strategy and Coastal Resilient Plan. Over 2 years, we gathered information and we provided through state government, and it was well reflected in the draft plan that came out in April of this year. Now, after that, our Read for Resilience work group analyzed and discussed this draft plan and put together a comprehensive 14-page document providing additional commentary and input that reflects the thoughts and the findings of our members. And that went in on May the 21st. If you go to NJCRC.org, you can see a list of our over 20 partners that reflects what I described earlier. There's all levels of partnership. You can be a full partner and also be part of the leadership committee. You can be a resource affiliate. You can be a general partner, and all of that is explained. It just depends on how much involvement you want to have. Our 14-page comment to New Jersey government about the draft plan is included on our website. I would like at this time to acknowledge Tim Dillingham, who from the American Little Society, who's one of our co-chairs, and Tim unfortunately has a personal family medical appointment today. And I believe Tony McDonald, the director of the Urban Coast Institute at Monmouth University, is on the phone. Tony, are you there?
I am, Ed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, Ed deserves a lot of credit because he has been in this game and helping to lead the communities for the longest time. So Ed, really a personal thank you to you for all of you have been doing and continue to do. I just want to say one quick thing is it's great to see so many new faces here. But again, the origin of this effort was really after Sandy, when it was recognized by DEP and others that there were a lot of groups out there who had capacity to help communities work on issues in recovering and also planning. And so we coordinated this group initially to really sort of bring together some of those groups to get common cause whenever we can. Again, another thing I want to emphasize to Ed's point, we've actually come a long way from there as well. I think there is a lot of capacity there, and the state is showing some leadership, as Ed indicated, with regard to the resilience plan and the climate adaptation strategy. We've seen more capacity built at Rutgers through the Climate Resource Center, a lot of work done by Jacques Cousteau and our members, Sustainable Jersey and others, really have, I think, really grown over the years. So we're really trying to now really galvanize that. So this is really one of those classic cases where hopefully the total is greater than the sum of its parts. And it will take kind of an all of the above effort. I think there is a broad recognition of the significance of this issue and a broad recognition that it really has to be implemented at the community level if it's really going to make a difference. This is not something that can be top down. So again, sorry, Ed, if I went on a little longer than you expected, but I did want to thank you for pulling this together, and Vanessa particularly, because this really is, I think, a transition to really what I'd say kind of democratizing our efforts to be sure that we are reaching out to the communities as much as we can and make sure we have an ongoing feedback loop with the communities and the experts that are out there. Not everybody can do everything, but I think together we really can make a difference for the state. So I appreciate it, Vanessa, for pulling this together.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And I'd like to just for a second turn it over also to Tom Harrington from Monmouth University at the Auburn Coast Institute and Laura Kerr from Stevens Institute of Technology, who provide our magnificent support staff. Is there anything the two of you would like to say? Or
thanks, Ed. This is Tom Harrington. Again, I'd just like to thank Vanessa for pulling this together. It's an incredibly great turnout. We really are excited to have all these new faces on this Zoom meeting, and hopefully we pique your interest in the collaborative and I think somebody already put in the chat a link to our partnership form, and we'll set up a link for the webpage we have so you can learn more about us. But welcome, and we're really great to have you here today.
Laura?
I don't think there's anything left for me to really say, but I'll just say thank you all for showing up, because you're the people we need to hear from. So thanks for making the time to be here.
Thank the two of you for what you do for us. Okay, at this time, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Nick Angarone, the manager of the New Jersey DEP Bureau of Climate Resilience Planning, who has played an integral role in the planning of this event and has been very highly supportive of it. And Nick, thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Ed. Good morning, everybody. I am going to, I hope you can all see the presentation there.
Looks great.
Thanks, Ed. As Ed noted, I'm Nick Angarone. I'm the manager of the Bureau of Climate Resilience Planning at DEP. To give you a quick context for who we are and what we do, my office, or this bureau, is part of the Climate and Flood Resilience Program. We report directly to New Jersey's Chief Resilience Officer, Dave Rosenblatt. We have a number of responsibilities, not the least of which is providing direct technical assistance to communities. We also worked with the Chief Resilience Officer in the Interagency Council to develop the draft Climate Change Resilience Strategy, which I noted was released earlier this year. We also administer New Jersey's Coastal Management Program. And you may also be familiar with the Resilient NJ program, which is kind of our umbrella term for all the work we do with technical assistance for our local governments. We are also the department's liaison to the State Planning Commission, and work closely with the Office of Planning Advocacy and other state agencies in the plan endorsement process. The toolkit, which I'm going to talk about briefly this morning, is a key part of all those responsibilities. I also should note that there are a number of my colleagues from the office on the webinar this morning, so I hope you will get introduced to them. Some of them are new, and hope that you'll get to meet them and learn to see that we're ready to work with you on these issues going forward. So the toolkit. The toolkit is intended as a resource for people who represent, who work, or volunteer for municipal or county government to understand how their communities, how your communities can proactively plan for a changing climate and build resilience into your local governments. Communities that utilize the toolkit can meet their obligations for the recent municipal land use law requirements to incorporate a climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment, as well as meeting the resilience planning requirements of the plan endorsement process. The resources in the toolkit will also help you integrate equity considerations into climate resilience planning. So the toolkit is set out into these into tabs, right? Which you can see across this top bar, which really are set up intended in a way to provide, a logical, good, comprehensive planning process, right? And resilience planning follows, good resilience planning follows a good planning process like anything else that you've been doing over the last years and decades. And so the first tab here, the overview tab, is intended does provide you the explanation as to kind of how to use the toolkit, but also goes into the kind of the climate impacts that you're going to need to understand to properly plan for climate changes and resilience. So it'll frame all of those challenges and will ultimately lead to, as you see kind of go through this process, lead you through vulnerability, lead you through, I give you plans and ideas for how to respond to those vulnerabilities, resources for how to fund and track those actions. And we'll go through each of these tabs fairly quickly. I also should note that every single resource, report, and link that we utilize in the toolkit is included in a resource library that you can find underneath that overview tab. We are continuing to work with the toolkit to enhance it further, to fill gaps, to provide clarification. And so we very much welcome your feedback on the toolkit as you start to use it. All right, the first part of any good planning process is communication and engagement. Right? And so the Initiate and Engage tab is intended to help you build an inclusive and effective team, as well as a successful engagement strategy. The toolkit provides guidance on how to identify key stakeholders within your communities, on how to ensure that your planning team and advisory committees fairly and equitably represent your community. A strong resilience plan is rooted in robust public outreach and should be designed to engage a diverse set of stakeholders. To help you with your outreach processes and ensuring that your planning team is as inclusive as possible, we've created the Equitable Community Resilience Evaluation Toolkit. We're going to have to maybe work on our titles and things. This toolkit helps ensure that the planning process is community-driven and undertakes special effort to engage groups that have been traditionally left out of the planning process, whether that be for reasons of geography, economic status, age, education, mobility limitations, or cultural or ethnic differences. The toolkit provides guidance on equity and inclusion, from building a representative team to data collection to the co-development of solutions. Tab 3 is focused on providing you with a number of tools and evaluation criteria to help assess your community's overall vulnerability to climate impacts. Here you can find information on asset identification, how to meet municipal land use law requirements. There's a self-assessment matrix and guidance on how to conduct advanced assessments regarding flooding, public health, and temperature rise. You'll also find here sea level rise guidance developed by DEP, which incorporates the best available science specific to New Jersey. That was developed by the Scientific Technical Advisory Panel out of Rutgers. We created tab 4 with the intent of helping you to critically think about local resilience actions that are appropriate for your community's specific needs. Resilience and adaptation actions, we're talking about the individual initiatives, plans, and projects chosen by your community to support increased climate resilience. Each action should address one or more of the vulnerabilities identified in the earlier vulnerability assessment and align with your community's vision for its future. To assist you identify resilience strategies appropriate for community, we've included several matrices to help frame risk reduction actions as well as capability and capacity building actions. Right, so some examples of capability capacity building are including local planning and regulations, as well as actions that advance health and social resilience. The screenshots you can see up here right, show that each one of these matrix identifies the climate hazard and impact associated with each action, as well as the source document where you can find more information. As I mentioned, every one of those source documents is included in the resource library that is at the beginning of the toolkit. So we also provide examples of risk reduction actions focused on building and infrastructure projects, as well as green infrastructure and nature-based solutions. The last and final tab is meant to provide you multiple options for next steps, potential funding resources. Here you can find a list of federal and state level funding opportunities for climate resilience efforts, as well as monitoring tools, approaches, and equitable considerations for implementation. The funding programs that we've identified, we really tried to include those that are ongoing programs. We will be updating this as regularly as possible as new opportunities arise, but we do expect that the ones that are in here, are things that you'll generally be able to rely on an annual basis. Once you get into the toolkit, you will see that there's a lot there. I've given you, an extremely high level, quick walkthrough of these tabs. There's a huge amount of information and guidance and resources in here. And while we try to develop this so that, your volunteers on kind of like your boards and commissions would be able to understand and utilize the toolkit and the resources within, we don't have the expectation that they're going to be able to just go and walk through this toolkit and develop, a 5-star resilience strategy, fairly quickly. So I think the purpose of this chat this morning, there's great alignment here. And so I urge you to use the technical assistance capabilities of the Coastal Resilience Collaborative partners to support you in those efforts, and the department as well as one of those partners. And I'll just close with links. I will share the slides here, but links for you to access some of the resources that we've talked about. The toolkit you can find by just going to resilient.nj.gov. The actual web address is long and complicated. There is a wealth of information on the department's climate change page, including on the climate mitigation side, as well as climate resilience. The climate resilience page itself has more information on our resilience actions, as well as is where you can find the statewide climate change resilience strategy. And the department has a fairly new sea level rise specific page where you can find the reports and science behind the current projections, as well as the guidance I referenced. And finally, you can always reach out to us at resilientnj@dep.nj.gov. And with that, I will turn it back over to Vanessa.
Thank you, Nick. I am just finishing up putting people into their breakout rooms. We had a few extra people join, so okay, everybody's good. So before we move into the breakout rooms, building on what we just heard from Nick, the DEP toolkit is roughly, well, it's not roughly split, it is split into 4 general categories. So we heard about, it has engaging stakeholders as step 1, assessing your vulnerability as step 2, developing a resilience strategy, and then implementing actions and tracking those actions. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to do a Jamboard. I am going to put the link. Oops, this is not what I want. There we go. Bear with me just a second. Everything went crazy when I started sharing. Okay, I'm going to put the link to this Jamboard in the chat, so you can go ahead and click that, and you will be brought to the same site that you're seeing me share on my screen. We're going to use these 4 categories to kick off the discussion in our breakout rooms. But before we do that, we're going to do a large group activity to guide those smaller group conversations. So here are the directions. Just bear with me and listen carefully, because we're each going to do something slightly different depending on who you are. If you're a local stakeholder, so a community member or a municipality or a concerned citizen, you are going to open an orange sticky note by clicking on this little note icon over on the left-hand side of the screen. It'll open up a yellow one, but I'm going to ask you to go and choose orange. Put your name and your affiliation on the sticky note and hit save to add it to the board. It'll try to get you to add another one. Just hit cancel to get to your own note. You're then going to click on your note, hold it, and you can drag it to the quadrant where you feel like you need the most assistance. So if I feel like I'm pretty good with engaging stakeholders, but I need help with my vulnerability assessment, I'd pull my sticky note over here and leave it. I can also resize it with these little blue dots on the corners to make sure that everyone's can fit. So that's the local stakeholders are going to use orange. If you are a technical assistance provider, so NJCRC member or a consultant, or you work for a government agency, etc., you're going to do the same process, but you're going to use a blue sticky note. So you'll just open up the sticky note, add your name and organization, hit save, and that'll add it to the Jamboard, and then you can move it to the quadrant where you can provide the most help. So locals are putting their note where they could use the most assistance. Providers are putting their note where they could offer the most assistance. As you're working on the sticky notes, I'm going to start moving everyone into the breakout rooms. You'll automatically be moved. So when you go back to your Zoom screen, you'll probably be in your breakout room. And when you get there, you'll have a facilitator to guide you through a deeper discussion about where you placed your notes. So take your time, take a couple minutes. If anybody has questions or needs help with the Jamboard, please do ask. Welcome back, everybody.
That wasn't enough time.
Well, we knew that was going to be the case, unfortunately. So one of the pieces of feedback everyone could give is that these should maybe be a little longer. If you didn't get a chance to share in the breakout rooms, I apologize, but please do keep in mind this is just the start of these conversations with the Coastal Resilience Collaborative. And to make sure we didn't lose any of the connections we started to make today, we're going to do a quick virtual note card activity as we wrap up. So you've probably done this before in real conferences, and bear with me, it's a little corny in the virtual world, but go ahead and grab a piece of paper nearby and a pen. I have my little paper here, and write down at least one person you want to follow up with today, or one action you want to take after this meeting. And while you're doing your note card, I am going to introduce one more resource that we want to share with you. So what you see on our on my screen now is the brand new NJCRC Technical Assistance Directory. We've just created this. The idea here is to help you facilitate the types of follow-ups that you're writing down on your note card now. It's, just as the name implies, a directory of technical assistance providers who are NJCRC partners. And we have about 40 different organizations and companies listed in this directory. I'm going to go ahead and put the website in the chat so you can check it out yourself. And I'm going to quickly run through how it works just so you know how to use it. When you get to the website, you have the option of downloading the entire directory at this link at the bottom of the paragraph. but you can also filter depending on what type of topic or specific resilience area that you're looking for help with. So we have everybody categorized into different topics. Many of our partners appear in several of these topics, so you don't have to worry about missing anybody. For example, if I'm looking for support with ecological design or maybe green infrastructure, I might go to the ecological design and techniques directory. And what I get is a list of all the providers who offer help in this area. And so for each one, there's a little bit of information to help you connect with them. We have a summary about the type of assistance that they offer, just a very brief summary. You can go to their website to get more information. There's contact information for the best person to reach out to get more information. It'll tell you where they offer services. So a lot of our partners are statewide, but some of them do specialize in a specific region of the state. And then if that organization has added any resources that they think might be helpful to you, they're also linked at the bottom of their listing. And so, like I said, there's about 40 organizations in there now, and we'll continue to add more as we get more partners, and maybe eventually also expand it beyond partners to just, you know, the overall goal is to help local communities make these connections for technical assistance. So with that concludes our agenda for today. Just as a few next steps, as mentioned, this is the first of what we hope to be many coffee chats, and right now it's just a pilot program. So next week I'll be following up with a brief survey for your feedback, as well as a list of today's participants, a copy of the Jamboard to facilitate further connections, and also a link to this technical assistance directory. It's still in a bit of draft form, and we'll be making further tweaks to perfect it over the next several days. We'll check in with everybody who registered for this event in late fall with some updates from the NJCRC and a save the date for the next coffee chat, which we are planning to have around January. That one will be in person, COVID dependent, and most likely at the Jacques Cousteau Reserve in Tuckerton. And there will be real coffee there, so that's a plus and something to look forward to. So thank you all for being here today. Stay tuned. If anybody has any questions or wants to continue discussions, I'll stay on and keep the Zoom open as long as we need to. But if not, you're free to go and have a great weekend.